Brandon Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Our residents across this country have been losing interest in local government for years. I think the results of turnout in local elections, and particularly local government by-elections, just show us how little some people are interested in local government. And I think a large reason for that, for me, I think probably the biggest reason when I speak to residents is because councillors are quite often saying to them, quite rightly over the last 10 years and more, that the issue is something they can't deal with. It's something that central government controls. And the honourable member from Liverpool actually made the comment earlier that the previous government gave money but it always had strings on. Well, that's absolutely the problem. As a councillor for 11 years and a council leader entirely during a Labour government, I have to say that my experience was never that we had plenty of money. It was never that we could do things ever without strings. Every single time we looked at doing something for our residents, there was some kind of tick box culture we had to go through, a consultation on something, even if it had been in a local election manifesto, or we had to do something differently in order to make sure we kept one quango or another or the audit commissioner happy, because if we didn't, officers' views was quite often that we would be punished somewhere else with a different grant being cut or changed in a different area. And I shared my honourable friend from South Derbyshire's view that one of the problems with local government is absolutely the stranglehold that has been put on it for years. And the way it has been held to ransom over its finance by the previous government has made it almost impossible as a local council to genuinely say you have any ability to do very much at all directly for your local residents, even on areas where you're not necessarily being struggled because you're having to find money to make up on the bus passes or the swimming pools or licensing. You're also then being handcuffed around planning when the rules on planning and what members could do for their residents on planning change. So it's been a very difficult time for local government, and I understand why residents have started to switch off and disbelieve what they see in election manifestos. After all, if you're in local government and you have an election manifesto, you probably still have to consult on it under government's statutory requirements anyway afterwards, so what was the point in a manifesto? And one of the things I think could be important about ending ring fencing and freeing up local government and the localism bill when it comes, I hope will allow councils to go back to actually concentrating on delivering for residents and not ticking these boxes that are so often caught up with a financial string, so that we can actually see elections matter again, so people can actually believe that when they vote for a councillor, when they vote for a party in a local election, that that party actually can go away and deliver on that manifesto. They can expect a form of a local manifesto that they can then hold a party and a council to account for, rather than just always being fobbed off with, we can't do that, we're restricted on this, or there's got to be consultation on that. And that is a huge issue for local government. And when I think back to my time as a councillor, and the amount of officer time that was spent on ticking these boxes, on putting bids together for money you may or may not get, depending on what box you tick. Of course.
Like the Regional Growth Fund.
I thank the honourable member for that intervention. I mean on a whole range of funds, right across the board, where on every single matter we would have officers spending a huge amount of time, even on things like CPA, where it would be up to £250,000 a year. I think if we added up that amount of officer time spent, there's a huge amount of money that local government can save. And I know, speaking to my local authority in Great Yarmouth, when the announcements were made earlier in the summer, that our managing director, I was proud to say, and the councillors came out and said, we can deal with this. We were one of the hardest hit local authorities, but they felt they could deal with it. And what they are doing now, quite rightly, is looking at how they share services. And one of the problems we've had is with the previous government, the way they look at these things, is we had estimates, even with if we'd have gone into unitary government, we had this debate just a couple of weeks ago in this chamber, where the argument was there would be a couple of £1 million a year savings from the unitary authorities for Norfolk and Exeter. But actually in Norfolk, one of the problems was we would still keep the county council, we'd still keep all the number of councils we had and just convert one city council to a unitary. So I still would dispute that there would have been any actual saving in officer money and time at all from moving to unitary. But the previous government wanted to do it in the belief there might be savings down the line, when in fact what we're now seeing in Norfolk is authorities coming together to look at how they can share service, both county with borough and district councils, and district councils across each other. And when you look at some of the savings that have to be made and some of the salaries, as other members have already commented on today, that some of the senior management in local authorities earn, once we start sharing services and actually focusing on that local accountability being with members representing their residents and not necessarily based on where a person's office might be or whether they work in one or two or three authorities, because actually what they're there to do is deliver a service, not tick a box for government, then actually we can start seeing huge savings right across the board. And the key with this, to me, is actually getting back to what are local authorities for. And I fully support the position the government's taken. We'll be voting against this motion tonight because I think the motion actually harks back to the bad days we've had over the last 10, 15 years of government actually holding local government at arm's length, but then being able to blame local government because it can't deliver, because it's got these strings attached, as honourable members for the Labour Party have already mentioned, when in fact we should be setting these councils free, giving them that power to be unring-fenced, to make their own decisions, that will make them more accountable, and transparency is a huge part of this, so that people understand that their local authority is the authority responsible for specific areas, has the power to deliver, and is accountable at an election, which is really what democracy is about. And I think that is actually a big step forward for local government. And I know other members are very keen to speak, and I'm happy to leave it there. Thank you.